To me, good governance is a good balance of compliance and performance in the individual that's working in the organization, as well as the management of the organization, as well as the board. Yeah, and how these three key groups of stakeholders interact with each other so that we're fully aligned to the mission of the organization.
Good governance really means having the right processes in place, effective processes that are actually going to help our charity move in the right direction, placing importance to accountability, and ultimately doing things that will truly benefit our beneficiaries.
For Mindset to be effective and transparent in executing our objectives and strategies, it's important that we have a good governance structure in place. This structure sets out the processes for decision making that can be observed by all internal stakeholders in the organisation, and also provides checks and balances to ensure effective and consistent management of Mindset across all levels.
So too much of compliance would make the organisation too rigid. Too much of performance will make the organisation too creative and maybe have mission drift. Yeah. So good governance is arriving at a good balance of these two.
So in any organisation, transparency is key. Transparency helps my staff know that everything is clear and helps us gather feedback, be very open. Beneficiaries and their families are always solicited for their feedback so that we are constantly improving. And this feedback is shared, is gathered, and our strategy is aligned to this feedback really. Because by having feedback from families, we are then able to see where we can do better and how this is, bottom line, going to come back to help the families.
I believe that as human beings, we all have internal conflicts. There's a part of us that wants to do the right thing. There's also a part of us that wants to do the best thing for ourselves. So like it or not, all human beings have an inner conflict. Some are more conscious of it than others. You put a group of people together without governance, it is likely that some will pursue what is right, some will pursue what is right for themselves. So good governance is necessary to ensure that not only are we doing the right things, we are also doing things right. Yeah, and more importantly, whatever we are doing, we are impacting people other than ourselves, and we are impacting the common good of society.
In order to inspire people, first and foremost, you need to invest in the right people. You need to support your staff and let them know that you're here to do things the right way. I think ultimately, not just your staff, but also your volunteers play a key role, and supporting your volunteers to make them feel that they're key to your organization is another important thing to do. As a charity, I think ultimately you should never lose sight of your vision and mission and always strive to achieve them, and things will fall in place.
Fundraising, I think, is a very important part, but I think there are also very important parameters that we need to be able to abide by. The 30-70 rule, which everyone is familiar with in the charity space, is one that we adhere to. But also in terms of how, I think, the mindset, if I could use the word as well, in approaching fundraising as a whole, to be mindful of the fact that we are raising this money for the benefit of our beneficiaries. We do have a code of conduct, we have our whistleblowing policy, and we also have the periodic training sessions that we would put our different parties through within the administration and within the Jardine ambassadors.
Well, as chairman of the organization, I think I'm in a good position to influence change throughout the organization. Change not just for the individuals working in SATA, but change for the organization, and most importantly, change for society, for the common good of society.
I love what I do because this is something that's truly an extension to what I do as a doctor. I'm a doctor by profession, and very often I can help patients in the hospital and maybe a little more in their life. But by coming and volunteering for Club Rainbow, by leading Club Rainbow, I'm able to extend this help into their lives. I'm able to truly impact their lives and make a difference in their lives.
On a more personal note, I've greatly enjoyed the interaction with clients, their carers and professionals from the VWO sector. Whether it's been on outings to organic farms or to the zoo or here in the Mindset Learning Hub. As someone who lives in Singapore but travels for work frequently, this helps to keep me connected to the fabric of Singapore's society and life.
We were doing functional screening for, again, the elderly, and functional screening means screening for the eyes, the ears, the mouth, and a very quick diagnosis of their mental health. So I was sitting around with about 4 of them, average age about 85 and above, and I was chatting with one of the ladies, a very pale, small lady with a small voice, and she said she's 85 years old and that she has giddy spells. And then the more I talked to her, the more I found out that, well, she has lost her husband. Her children are living separately from her. They don't visit her very often. And she's living alone. So I put 2 and 2 together. This lady has giddy spells and she lives alone. So that was a red flag for me. Well, immediately I asked for her IC number, her full name. I called management. I even called somebody in Ministry of Health and said, this lady needs a personalized attention. And the next day, I was told that she's registered on Careline and she has a volunteer looking after her full-time. It's not something I planned for, but it's a gift that came to me that I was able to help her directly.
This was, I think, last year. One of my great volunteers, I think, was Dexter. He was a child, and then he grew up with Club Rainbow. I didn't know him very well as a child, but I knew him when he kind of graduated and became a volunteer. He committed to Club Rainbow. He committed to coming back every year. I think whenever we ran into trouble with volunteers, he was always there to encourage them because he knew the volunteers really well, and volunteers connected with him because they knew him as a child and then they knew him as a fellow volunteer. I think his last camp was last year, and he was unwell, but he wanted to come as a volunteer to the camp. So we knew he was not well, and I was the medical director for the camp as well, and I was like, hey, you're not feeling very well. But he's like, it's okay, I still want to commit. Of course, after camp, he fell sick, he got even more sick, and he passed away a few months after. We still remember Dexter. I think a lot of families remember Dexter. A lot of volunteers remember Dexter, and his fellow beneficiaries remember him. But yeah, he's one inspirational story of a child who came back to volunteer for us and supported us even up to their last breath.